let me open another door. I'm not sure I want to open, but difference between men and women. Is there difference between the emotional lives of those two categories of biological systems?
So here's what I would say. We did a series of studies um, in the 1990s where we asked men and women to tell us about their emotional lives. And women described themselves as much more emotional than men. They believed that they were more emotional than men, and men agreed. Women are much more emotional than men. Okay. And then we gave them little handheld computers. These were little Hewlett-Packard computers. They fit in the palm of your hand. They weighed a couple of pounds. So this was like pre-Palm Pilot even. Like this was, 1990s and like early. And we asked them, we would, ping them like 10 times a day and just ask them to report how they were feeling, which is called experience sampling. So we experience sampled. And then at the end, and then we looked at their reports, and what we found is that men and women basically didn't differ. And there were some people who were really had many more instances of emotion. So they were, they were treading water in a tumultuous sea of emotion. And then there were other people who were like floating tranquilly, in a lake. It was really not perturbed very often, and everyone in between. But there were no difference between men and women. And the really interesting thing is at the end of the sampling period, we asked people, reflect over the past 2 weeks and tell it. So, we've been now pinging people like again and again and again, right? So tell us how emotional do you think you are? No change from the beginning. So men and women believe that they are different. And when they are looking at other people, they make different inferences about emotion. If a man is scowling, like if you and I were together and somebody's watching this, okay? And yeah, hey, who was saying, hey, hi, yeah, hi.
By the way, people love it when you look at the camera.
If you and I make exactly the same set of facial movements, when people look at you, both men and women look at you, they are more likely to think, oh, he's reacting to the situation. And when they look at me, they'll say, oh, she's having an emotion. She's, yeah. And I wrote about this actually right before the 2016 election.
You know what? Maybe I could confess. Let me try to carefully confess.
But you are really going to.
Yeah. That when that there is an element when I see Hillary Clinton that there was something annoying about her to me. And that feeling, and then I tried to reduce that to what is that? Because I think the same attributes that are annoying about her when I see in other people wouldn't be annoying. So I was trying to understand, what is it? Because it certainly does feel like that concept that I've constructed in my mind.
Well, I'll tell you that I think, well, let me just say that that what you would predict about, for example, the performance of the two of them in the debates, and I wrote an op-ed for the New York Times actually before the second debate, and it played out really pretty much as I thought that it would, based on research. It's not like I'm like a great fortune teller or anything. It's just I was just applying the research, which was that when a woman's people make internal attributions, it's called. They infer that the facial movements and body posture and vocalizations of a woman reflect her inner state. But for a man, they're more likely to assume that they reflect his response to the situation. It doesn't say anything about him. It says something about the situation he's in.
That's brilliant.
Now, for the thing that you were describing about Hillary Clinton, I think a lot of people experienced, but it's also in line with research, which shows, and particularly research actually on about teaching evaluations is one place that you really see it, where the expectation is that a woman will be nurturant and that a man, there's just no expectation for him to be nurturant. So he's, if he is nurturant, he gets points. If he's not, he gets points.
Right.
They're just different points, right? Whereas for a woman, especially a woman who's an authority figure, she's really in a catch-22.
Right.
Because if she's serious, she's a bitch. And if she's empathic, then she's weak.
Right. That's brilliant. I mean, one of the bigger questions to ask here. So that's one example where our construction of concepts gets
right. But
gets
remember,
us in trouble.
But remember, I said science and philosophy are like tools for living. Yeah. So I learned recently that if you ask me what is my intuition about what regulates my eating, I will say carbohydrates. I love carbohydrates. I love pasta. I love bread. I just love carbohydrates. Yeah. But actually, research shows, and it's beautiful research. I love this research because it so violates my own deeply, deeply held beliefs about myself, that most animals on this planet who have been studied, and there are many, actually eat to regulate their protein intake. Mm-hmm. So you will overeat carbohydrates in order to get enough protein. And this research has been done with very beautiful research with humans, with crickets, with bonobos. I mean, just all these different animals, not bonobos, but I think like baboons. Now that I have no intuition about that. And even now, as I regulate my eating, I just have no intuition. I can't feel it. What I feel is only about the carbohydrates.
It feels like you're regulating around carbohydrates, not the protein.
Yeah. But in fact, actually, what I am doing, if I am like most animals on the planet, I am regulating around protein. So knowing this, what do? I correct my behavior to eat, to actually deliberately try to focus on the protein. Mm-hmm. This is the idea behind bias training, right? Like if you, I also did not experience Hillary Clinton as the warmest candidate. However, you can use consistent scientific findings to organize your behavior. That doesn't mean that rationality is the absence of emotion, because sometimes emotion or feelings in general, not the same thing as emotion. That's another topic. But are a source of information and their wisdom and helpful. So I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that if you have a deeply held belief and the evidence shows that you're wrong, then you're wrong. It doesn't really matter how confident you feel. That confidence could be also explained by science, right? So it would be the same thing as regardless of whether someone is like Charlie Baker, right? Regardless of whether somebody is a Republican or a Democrat, if that person has a record that you can see is consistent with what you believe, then that is information that you can act on.